Hi, everybody. It's Susan, and today I want to talk about the Sagittarius full moon. There's a lot coming up before that, so maybe we can touch on a few different shifts that have happened since I wasn't able to do a video last week. I had a much needed rest. My brain just shut down. I think I'm spending way too much time online, so there we are. But I'm back, and with the bright and shiny Sagittarius full moon to talk about, which I really do like this moon. There's a lot to work with here on an individual level that is really exciting. And then we'll see also in terms of our collective what that can also represent for us. So, one of the things that I always say when I'm talking about the Sagittarius full moon or Sagittarius in general is to focus on beliefs, what you believe, because it is really about that. It's about faith, having faith, spiritual, religious, political, ideological faith. This is Sagittarius. And because Jupiter rules Sagittarius and it's in such strong dignity at this time, it's going to be something quite favorable. It can work really well for us. It can help us find faith, find some kind of personal strategy to move through these times. I'm going to do a separate video on Venus with Jupiter. I hinted at that in the most recent video, which was about the Taurus New Moon that we just experienced on the 16th of May. And I want to speak more about the idea of sort of overplaying astrology, over believing or putting too much faith in astrology. And especially when we're looking at Venus and Jupiter in Cancer, hearing a lot of this is lucky, this is going to be amazing. And in that video, which I'll do shortly, I'm going to explain why that's not true. It may be true, but it certainly won't be true for everyone. And it's not because a planet goes into a particular place that it actually will work out in a fortunate way for everybody. So we have to really start to at least give astrology the credit that is due after thousands of years of using it. It wouldn't work if we were that superficial around astrology. And it's really one of the bugaboos that I have about online astrology or working this way and having to dumb things down. And Sagittarius doesn't like to dumb things down. So we're going to have a look at that idea too. Using our wisdom, using our own counsel is also Sagittarian, but also going to the right teachers, knowing who to listen to and who to not listen to is also very Sagittarian, very Jupiterian. Jupiter in Indian astrology is known as Guru, and Gu is the heaviness and this kind of notion of darkness, as in dullness, intellectual dullness, or a lack of awareness and ignorance in the purest sense. It's not a judgmental thing. It's just you don't know what you don't know. And the Ru aspect of the word is the revelation of something. It's revealing or taking off or removal of the heaviness. And that's what in the meaning of guru is. And when we think of a teacher, it's just someone who enlightens us, really. It's somebody who brings information or gets us to see things in a different way. And I think that's the best use of astrology. It's to see yourself in a different way, to see how you're interacting with life in a different way, not to be told what is going to happen, and certainly not to be told what you should do with your life. This is, for me, a misuse of astrology. So you won't be hearing that here. If you need that, then you might as well click off now. Um, and also, this is not AI-generated content. This is me doing my homework in front of your eyes. I'm delineating the chart and I'm showing you what I'm seeing in the chart, and I'm showing you why it's that, and you'll even find me thinking in real time. I'm speaking extemporaneously, which means I'm not always knowing in advance what I'm going to be saying. But I find that for me anyway, that works much better in terms of delineation. If I overthink things, I start to get too much into the weeds. I have Jupiter in Gemini, and then I bog myself down in too much information, and it loses the big picture, which is Jupiter in Sagittarius. So we're going to look at a bunch of different themes here. But before we do, I just wanted to briefly touch back on the 16th of May new moon, where I had said that there were three people that I, off the top, was looking at just because of noticing what's going on in their charts around the time of that new moon. One of them was Prince Charles. Sorry, that's me showing my age. King Charles, King Charles III. Um, Very bad luck name, by the way. So anyway, but there we are. So King Charles III, I had said there would be something eventful around this time that will illuminate his chart. He had the South Node crossing his Saturn and a few other things that were being impacted by the timing of the new moon. Not specifically Algol in his case, but the lunation chart was really deeply impacting his chart. And so I thought I'll just check in and have a look at what happened to him. Johnny Depp was the other one, and then the other one was Javier Milei of Argentina. So I'll have a look what I found online because I had said those people will come up in the news, and then I thought, well, maybe I was wrong, but I just checked back. And sure enough, astrology doesn't disappoint. So what we found for yes, King Charles was almost a comical rendition of the king's speech, where he completely in his, ensconced in his royal garb, ermine and everything, was talking about modernization. I'll just leave it there. And so what else happened? That was the 13th. So when we look at a lunation, we're looking a couple of days before and after for things that are very impactful. So the world was talking about Charles for the period of the full moon, sorry, the new moon on the 16th, and particularly this juxtaposition of this incredible old-fashioned garb coming from also a very elderly person and talking about how Britain needs to modernize without any trace of irony. Monty Python couldn't have done it better. Anyway, so the very tragically, on the new moon for him, on the 16th, one of the king's troops. So if you've been to London, you will, or anywhere royal, so-called in England, you'll find that there's always a trooping of the guards. There's horsemen, and they do these very ceremonial prances around in their special military outfits as well as the king's guard. So these were the king's troops who were presenting at the Royal Horse Show of Windsor on the 16th of May, and indeed one of them fell and dropped dead, unfortunately, in an unexplained fall. Now remember, Algol has that figure of the sense of something dramatic happening, something sudden, something catastrophic or shocking, and even quite literally the sort of off with the head image, which is connected to the Medusa mythology of the ancient Greek mythology. So I'll leave that there. I'm not going to go into that, but it was very important, I think, that that happened around that new moon because, he has a lot of his chart resonating in the near future. And I think that's, again, not a great omen for King Charles III. So we'll keep that in mind as we go forward in time. Another thing was Johnny Depp. So Johnny Depp has Venus on Algol, and who was that? Mm, I've forgotten her name. The woman that he was in court with, his ex-girlfriend, Amber Heard, the actress Amber Heard, uh, also has Venus on Algol, and of course, appropriately, they were at each other's throats over their passionate romance maybe 4 years ago, I think it was. Anyway, so I knew something would come up for him because this was too much energy around his Venus not to see that. And sure enough, again, astrology didn't disappoint. Within a couple of days of the lunation, there was a female who apparently is a bit of a stalker, and she was trespassing his house again. There were no charges pressed, but I found it very interesting that it's this woman who's tracking him, and that she was taking photos of his house and basically plopped herself down on his lawn or on his property in one way or another until she was scared away by the police. So the other weird thing that was happening, this was all happening, in fact, on the 19th of May. So again, just after the lunation, things were shifting by then, but related, I think, to the new moon energy of his Venus. There was a death hoax on internet, people saying he was dead and what a shame and rip, etc. Of course, he's not. He's very much alive. And on the same day, he asked for prayers for his dog, who had surgery that same day. So it was a really interesting kind of combo. I don't really track these celebrities, but I did because of that lunation. So it can be very interesting if you have, people in mind, people that you follow in a general sense, who have signatures that are repeating. When you find these repetitions, especially around lunations or when there's something unusual happening, you can track what's going on in their lives around that particular time, give or take 2 or 3 days, and you'll see that something is coming up in their experience that will relate to the theme. Another one who was on my radar there was Javier Milakowski, apparently, interesting name, and he on around the lunation, which was announced, in fact, the day after. So that was because it was a weekend. It was announced the day after the um, moon, so that was actually on a Sunday. It was the approval ratings dropped quite substantially for him. So again, if you think about the prestige or the sort of notion of off with their head, well, this could be a symbolic off with his head, his huge drop in approval ratings. And the few days before the lunation, so on the 12th of May, apparently there was also a major demonstration that was opposing his measures about education and funding for universities and things like that. So I just thought I'd mention that because it's always interesting to track what's going on in astrological terms when something significant happens in somebody's life, just because it's also a way of learning the astrology and seeing how that might influence us in the future, kind of a track record, if you like. Um, Right. I want to talk again about this Sagittarius full moon. Oh, I should, for those of you who are new here, welcome. And for those of you who are coming back, thanks for coming back. I really appreciate your support. And I want to just mention this again because I hinted at the AI stuff. I don't monetize my channel for reasons of Google. Look it up. And I also, I am finding myself very much in a dark corner of the internet with increasing competition coming from AI-supported channels. So not only directly AI, but people who are heavily using AI. And one of the takeaways, or one of the giveaways rather, of using a lot of AI is that your production just goes through the roof. So if people are posting, several hundred videos in a year, there's more likely to be some kind of AI behind it. And I think in these days, we need to be really clear that we're either doing that, be very open and honest about using that, or in some ways also recognizing that that we need to take a stand in terms of what we accept as standard, or what we accept, what are our limits, let's say, in terms of using artificial intelligence, which, by the way, is also unreliable at times, and especially astrologically speaking. Just take away the midheaven and ascendant there because we don't need it for this chart. So again, just a plea, please follow real people. There are loads of fantastic astrologers on YouTube, and follow those real people who are talking about real things. And earlier today, I was watching Planet Waves. So I was watching Eric Francis Coppolino, who some of you, if you've been around a while, will know I do know, and he's been invited on my channel for a conversation maybe 3 years ago or so. I can't remember when. And we had he rather presented a really interesting dynamic, astrological dynamic around generational astrology, and I think it's really worth a watch. So check out that video on Planet Waves Astrology. He's also kind of lurking in a corner of the internet, um, which is a little unfortunate because I think there's some people like him who just bring an enormous amount of information and learning to the table, and especially if you like things like asteroids and minor planets and stuff like that, Eric is the place to go. He knows a lot about those things, and he has been working with them for a very long time. I've been following him probably 16 years on and off because I don't always keep track of everything everybody does, but he knows a lot and is definitely somebody you can learn from. So check out his videos and support real people doing real work, or we are all going to be in trouble. And then again, to come back to this notion of Sagittarius faith and what I believe in, a client or slash student of mine asked a question about her young people that she knows, And those young people have been really put off astrology. And I wanted to just touch on this notion because they were teenagers and they felt very strongly that astrology was misleading them or leading them down a way that made them feel bad about themselves. And again, this would be a totally inappropriate way to use astrology. It's if you're informing somebody about danger zones or personal tendencies that they need to take care of and beware of, that's really, I find, helpful. Again, whether or not it's received, it's up to the individual what they do with that material. But astrology should never be seen as prescriptive. It's definitely something to be used with a sense of internal agency. Now, this will become a situation for the individual to learn through their life, and also that's what our parents and teachers are here. Ideally, the guru is there to teach us, is to be our own inner guru, find that guru in ourselves, be your own damn guru, as they say. But also to recognize that astrology is like a weather report. There's nothing here that I'm saying that you should take 100% on faith. I'm going to give you my personal interpretation around all these things that I'm seeing, for example, here with the Sagittarius full moon. But you need to be able to resonate with that, and you need to take responsibility for what you believe and question what you believe. Sometimes people just run into ideas because it's coming from somebody that they have put on a pedestal. And if the word guru has a bad connotation in modern times, it's because people have done that. They've put somebody on a pedestal and then they come crashing down because the individuals realize, oh, they're human. These are not divine beings, these are humans, and they're fallible by definition. So what is the guru? The true guru is your intuition. This is the inner guru that you also should be consulting in all cases, regardless of what it is that you're looking at. Reflect first from the inside. Is this aligning with what I'm feeling and even physically vibrating within my body? Because that's your inner knowing. That's an inherited or an intuited understanding of life, and it's not coming from a thought or an idea. It's a knowing, and that's the difference between the Mercury and the intellectual understanding of things and the Sagittarius, the knowing aspect of things, right? So the difference between manas and vijnana, which is like if you think of the kosha system, vijnanamaya kosha is the knowledge. It's something that it's just like, I don't know why I know, I just know that. And this is the energy of the guru. So, this expression, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. Well, it's not another person. We've projected that onto a person. So people will be, I found my teacher, because they're now showing me something about myself that I'm ready to learn. But really, the deeper meaning of that expression is when the student is ready, the teacher appears because it's already bloody well there, and it's just had the shades removed, the scales have fallen from the eyes, and the darkness has been removed. The guru is there waiting at any time. So one of the ways of using the mind, in the tradition, it's given the idea of using a thorn to remove a thorn. So we use the mind, which itself is a problematic thorn at times, and we use it to extract what the mind can understand and to question things, to assess what is my belief, what do I know, what do I think I know, and what is worth believing. So, for example, do you believe in astrology? Well, that would be a question I would have to answer no to. I don't believe in astrology. I don't put my faith in astrology. I just look for patterns. And when those patterns repeat, I can say, well, there's something here that's showing us something. And I can more or less say what this is going to feel like because I'm looking at those patterns. But it's not a belief. I'm still questioning all the time, what might this represent? What does this mean? So never put your faith in something 100% unless you are aligning with it in all different layers or koshas of your being. And especially something like astrology, which is being massively distorted and oversimplified, you will come away disappointed and angry like these teenagers because it's not the full picture of astrology, and we can't present that until we sit down with a unique chart, right? So that's why I always, when there's an event, I'm delineating the whole chart. I'm not going to just single out a placement and then look at that. Although if for the outer planets, sometimes I might do that, where they're so slow moving that we're talking about a background noise that's going to be there for many, many years. But the inception chart or the ingress chart is always the thing to refer to if we want to understand the bigger themes of the ingress. So in yoga, or in Hindu philosophy, but in yogic philosophy, you have a concept of dvesha. And dvesha means, whenever you hear the word dva, it means two. And it means dividing. It even is the root of our word, dividing. And when you think of the concept of dvesha, it's about recognizing something that can make you angry, or it can be something that you feel is causing distress. And that's where you get this repugnance or repulsion, a refusal of something, which is what I was picking up on with these girls who were refusing astrology, for example. But the energy of that is creating a lot of suffering because it puts a lot of energy into what we don't want. And this is why it's known as one of the kleshas. So klesha is an affliction. It's something that holds us back. It prevents us from growing into wisdom because we're stuck on something that we're repeating that's a mental habit and not going beyond the mind. We're not going beyond into our wisdom. And when we look at something from the point of view of what I don't want, we keep getting more of it. We're running away from something, or we're pushing against something, which means that it's still very present in our awareness or in our energy, and it takes a lot to keep pushing against stuff. That resistance or the avoidance of something just kicks the can down the road, and it keeps coming back with this feeling of suffering, or the dukkha, which is part of the notion of dvesha. It's coming from this feeling of something's wrong, I don't like this. But when we start to use our discernment, which is ideally what Jupiter is showing us, when we discern something, then we understand. It's different from factual knowing or belief and having a faith in something unquestioned. Discernment is about recognizing what I understand. And when we use this particular full moon chart, there's a number of features here that show us where we can find a lot of understanding. And one of them is that Aldebaran is on the sun, or rather the sun is conjoining Aldebaran, and will very, very quickly after this lunation, really within an hour or so of the lunation, come into conjunction with Aldebaran, which is only like 15 arc minutes, 14 arc minutes away, 16 arc minutes, sorry for the math, never been a strong point. So it's really, really close is what I'm trying to say. It's within a fraction of a degree. And with Aldebaran, we have this higher wisdom, higher knowledge. This is a kind of an assessment of, it's bringing out the best, let's say, when we conjoin the sun with Aldebaran. It's one of those bright, bright stars in the sky. So if you have anything currently around 10 degrees of Gemini, give it 2.5 or 2 degrees and 40 arc minutes on either side of that, you will also have some of this aspect of Aldebaran in your chart. And it's really about, it's about this feeling of taking higher-minded action. It's about integrity, which is very much what the energy of Jupiter is describing as well. So even though it's here in Gemini, Aldebaran has a lot to do with integrity, acting from wisdom or integrity. And when you do so, you get the best results. And when you do not do so, you're going to get very bad results. And either way, the results can be precarious if you're starting to wobble in your integrity. Now, I think this speaks really loudly to the days that we're in currently, the times that we're living in a general sense, and also, of course, the heavily laden tensions that we're living in between all different kinds of factions that are not entirely clear around the world. And then that brings me to Pallas. Pallas Athena is coming up to a conjunction with Saturn, and that's going to be between now and the 9th of June. So 9th, 10th of June is a really key time in the month of June, and I'll be coming back to talk about that when I talk about the Venus conjunct Jupiter, which is happening on the same day. And then as that's conjoining this movement of Pallas towards Saturn, we're getting this opportunity to really understand things from a bigger picture point of view. So remember last time I was talking about Pallas being very close to Neptune, where our schematic understanding needs to be spiritualized in some way or conceptualized in a way that is non-personal, because otherwise we can lose track of what is true, what is real. Over personalizing things tends to bring bad results, because if we're working towards things in an egoic way, we're not working through the higher minded consideration for all, the greater good of all, which again is very Sagittarian. We're looking at the greater good, a higher minded sense of life, a higher vision, let's say, for life. So with the Aldebaran asking us to do the right thing, working in integrity, and then Pallas with Saturn bringing this energy of um, a, a really deeply considered, slowing down to consider the bigger picture, the bigger schema of things, what's actually going on. And this starts to embrace much more understanding, more recognition of impact. What the Buddha called the dependent arising, what my teacher Thich Nhat Hanh called interbeing. We have to keep these aspects in mind, and this is what Jupiter allows us to do, especially when it's exalted in Cancer, is to recognize that it's not all about me and my needs and my desire nature, but I am fitting into a bigger picture. In a similar way, the notion of Ubuntu is very strong here, because Ubuntu is the same idea. It's the African, especially Southern African idea of, I am because we are. We exist because of each other, not independent from each other. So it's a similar idea, conceptually at least, to the dependent arising, or this notion of events only emerge because of other events. And as I'm teaching my beginners, for example, I'm teaching them why a particular astrological sign has the flavor that it does, and it's this notion of Ubuntu. It's like the sign has its flavor from the other signs. It doesn't stand alone. So this is how all of life works. We are just like a mere part of a bigger puzzle, and this is where you have this deeper understanding that comes from Sagittarius. This is the wisdom that Sagittarius can bring, with its big picture understanding, and recognizing that blind faith is not the same as understanding. So that we don't have to resent something, it's because we haven't had a bigger picture. Let's take astrology again as a reference. We don't have the big enough picture to be able to say, well, that doesn't work, or that's wrong, or the astrologer is stupid, or astrology is stupid. It's the use of the tool that is misguided, or inappropriate, or insufficient. And if we have a bigger understanding, we know, again, if we're thinking in terms of the guru, we know who to ask for the answers that we're looking for, starting with ourselves. So again, I would say, don't refer to astrology for your big life answers. Get some help, a little bit of guidance, just like you would ask any kind of counselor. Look at the weather report to see what you should be wearing, but don't believe in it. Don't throw your whole life into the hands of an astrologer, and especially not because you don't know who these individuals are and what they truly understand. Nobody understands your life better than you. So here we're starting to piece together what, for me, this Sagittarius full moon is representing in a really powerful way. So before we get to the actual moon, we still have Mercury, who is ruling the sun at this time, but also ruling Uranus, which is also playing a major role in this lunation. And Mercury is on Betelgeuse. So this is something that is all about wisdom, and it in fact is very mercurial. It's about quick thinking and about quick action, and this pretty much describes Mercury in Gemini, but especially at that last degree of Gemini, where we find Betelgeuse. And some people say Beetlejuice, but I think that's a bit of a corruption of the name, more due to Hollywood than actual astronomy. But it's because these are Arabic names, so everything, when you hear Al, when you hear Bet, all of these are coming from anglicized versions of Arabic. So, understand the origin of things, again, with that Sagittarian mindset, and you'll understand where to place the pronunciation of it, for example. So here we have our intellect is on fire. It's really strong. We have sharp, quick thinking, and we can use it. Like I was saying, I'm using the thorn to remove the thorn, use the mind to understand the mind. And this is really helpful at the time of this full moon. So we have Mercury ruling the sun and Uranus in its own sign, also on Betelgeuse, and we've got Jupiter in its exalted sign, ruling the moon, and the moon being ruled by Jupiter. So this is a mutual, it's not really a mutual reception technically because it's not in a traditional aspect, but they're in each other's signs. So it's a mutual generosity. That's considered to be what that represents, according to Robert Hand, who is one of my key teachers in these things. Um, and I'm here because of him, by the way. If it weren't for Robert, I wouldn't have started my YouTube channel, or at least started posting on YouTube. So you can thank him for that if you like it. And then we're going to come to also Fomalhaut, which is on the North Node, and very, very tightly on the North Node for the next, let's say, month, where it starts to fade a little bit at the end of June. But we already had this, remember, at the new moon on the 16th. I mentioned this as part of a more spiritual or graceful awareness, a spiritualized awareness of things and the way that we're destined to go. It also brings about creative opportunities for taking action in it in a way that feels more creative. So just before this lunation, just hours before, the moon was actually squaring the nodes, which are the lunar nodes. And now we have the moon, which is on Antares. And so Antares is a very interesting star. It's military in orientation. It really means, so Aries is the old Greek for Aries, and it's the old vision of Mars, or the notion of Mars. And so this is what Antares means, and it represents that martial quality, this sort of military or even violent quality. And so this is something where we can also understand where we ourselves can be acting from emotional, maybe even nationalism. Here we find Jupiter in Cancer can be very nationalistic, very protective of the family, of the nation, of the people, etc., in its shadow expression. But here what we have also is this emotional impulsivity. So we want to use the mind to allow the emotions to be guided from this Jupiterian quality of, I am here because you are here. And it's even quite literal in the way that I'm just saying that. I'm only here on YouTube because you're here. I wouldn't be entertaining myself doing this. I absolutely dread doing YouTube videos, as many of you know. Definitely out of my comfort zone. But so what we want to understand is when we're combining all of this, we get this notion of using wisdom, using our discernment, asking for grace, or seeing our spiritual way through things, as well as understanding the mind and working with the mind in such a way that we decide how we're going to go forward with the greater good of all in mind. So if we don't do that and we start to lack integrity, Sagittarius is one of the signs that is really about integrity. When we're lacking integrity, and when we're not acting from that place, we will lose this capacity to succeed, let's say, and that will be whatever category you're working with in terms of your own dynamic between Gemini and Sagittarius. You will lose that capacity to succeed without the guidance of wisdom, but also without the moral foundation, which is very much what Sagittarius is all about. The morality, the what you could describe as religious or spiritual foundation. And this is why when there is a reference to something like sin, or the different ways of conducting oneself according to religious or scriptural doctrine, any scriptural doctrine, not one in particular, but there are essential human things that we need to obey, one of which is do not lie, do not harm, do not cause suffering. These are fundamental human notions that these are operative regardless of your faith and religion. And when we don't act from those places, things go wrong. But most importantly, they go wrong from in our own heart, in our own mind. And then, of course, we see that objectively, outwardly, things go wrong. And so when we talk about that notion of, listening to the guru, you think about an innate understanding that children have, that when they cause harm, they hurt another child, for example, they feel bad. You feel bad. You cause more suffering when you cause suffering. It's just part of what I was saying earlier about dvesha. The notion of dvesha is about this causing harm or splitting things apart or creating some kind of suffering creates more suffering. And this is where we bring in, again, our understanding of intuition and insight. And now we can bring in the Uranus in Gemini squaring the nodes. So Uranus is moving away from Sedna, part of the what I'd spoken about earlier when Uranus was coming into Gemini in another video. So we're moving away from sadhana, but still with a bit of the flavor of sadhana, of understanding sacrifice. You could say understanding what it means to be in a place of sacrifice or learning from suffering, learning from sacrifice. And this is, you could say, one of the major life lessons. This is a life lesson. It's not just because of sadhana. Sadhana's story is about that, but it's not because Uranus is on sadhana that this is the theme necessarily. But the fact that Uranus is squared the nodes and coming into a deeper square of the nodes as we go into June, as we continue through the month of June, Uranus is very, very tightly squaring the nodes. And that again comes around the time that Jupiter and Venus are coming together. So really interesting time. That'll be my next video. We'll talk about all these things, but it doesn't matter because they are well in an orb of a square. This is about a degree and 45 minutes, so less than 2 degrees of an orb, which for a square to the nodes is more than enough to matter. So this has already been in play through May and definitely all through June. We are able to use this awareness and insight that Uranus is bringing. There's a challenge here because we've got the square means that there's a need for adjustment with some innovation, especially when we're looking at Uranus in Gemini. But it can also be that part of the problem is because of innovation, which brings me back to my point about artificial so-called intelligence and what AI is doing to us. And we're, again, in this sort of march towards something that nobody really deeply thought about, or even, let's call it in a slightly different way, that the people who deeply thought about it warned against and were seeing the problem arising years in advance, and we're just marching on. Now, again, for commercial reasons, here's Uranus in Mercury ruled Gemini, commercial reasons, where we really need to use our personal discernment and recognize where our choices, another good Gemini word, our choices are determining factors in how we go forward in time. So how you choose to consume, another good Gemini word, and how you choose, how you use your thinking process, your capacity for discernment. So if we bring in our Jupiter and that notion of Sagittarius, bringing in the discernment, understanding the consequences of things requires a certain amount of consideration, and we need to be able to be inspired through something bigger than ourselves. So this is, for me, the significance of the Sagittarius full moon in a bigger context of this world where personal integrity is really the only thing we can rely on. We are losing it in terms of social importance. We're finding people more casually losing their integrity and not realizing how much it's costing them. So what is very important about, again, following scripture, and I'm not saying which one, there's loads to follow, the scriptures which are about the ways that we should conduct ourselves. There's a morality, and the morality is not to be told from the top down. That's the Sagittarius sort of shadow. I'll tell you how to live. This is the Sagittarian quality, for example, that goes around the world as a missionary and says how to believe, how to think, how to feel. This is how you conduct society and so on. We're not talking about that. That's the shadow version. We're talking about the inner knowing, which is that if I don't conduct myself properly, then I'm going to suffer and I'm causing more suffering. And this is where people have missed the boat somehow. So morality is not, it's like I'm getting to that place where I can call myself an old lady. I don't mind calling myself an old lady. We'll call it a crone if you prefer, or the wise woman. Don't care what you call it. I'm at an age, post second Saturn return, where I can see the consequences of behavior, and I've seen it in my own life and in the lives of people around me, and I see hundreds of people every month. And in the consequences of behavior, I see that there's a whole lot of suffering, and that suffering can be avoided, or the cause of suffering to another can be avoided if we really sit with ourselves and listen to our own intuition, to our inner guru. So personal integrity, personal honesty, choosing wisely, this is where we find our greatest success. So what's interesting about this moon is, again, the fact that Antares with the moon suggests that there's something here that can be quite martial, something military, something even potentially violent. But if we're using that wisdom, the discernment, we can act in that Mars-like way and take action or prevent something harmful from happening in the same way. This is the spiritual warrior kind of metaphor for Mars. And then we find that Mars itself at 9 degrees of Taurus, ruled by Venus, which is currently now ruled by this moon, Venus in Cancer, ruled by this moon, is actually in an inconjunct, or what we also call a quincunx, to this moon. And so there's something that requires our adaptation, our adjustment based on, guess what? Values. This is Venus, the values and our sense of what is right and wrong, what we find important or not important, that value of stuff even, the value of our possessions. And this is in a semi-sextile, very tight with the sun itself at the time of this lunation, of course, because it's in conjunct the moon. It's a moon opposite the sun. It will therefore be in a semi-sextile. So, and also in a semi-sextile to Pallas Athene. So this description, how do we use this, let's say, goal-oriented behavior or action-oriented behavior is based in values and will be guided, if possible, if we slow down enough and let that understanding filter in through the moon, in the awareness of the moon, the shared luminosity of the moon, or the reflected light of the moon, if we understand why we're doing what we're doing and how it might impact the lives of other people. So the only way we can move through these times is to keep coming back to what is nuts and bolts about what it means to be human, and to really understand that we have a role to play, that we are not able to fix all of the outer ills of the universe or whatever is going on collectively, but we can do a lot energetically through our own selves, using our wisdom, not believing in all kinds of nonsense and airy-fairy notions that Santa Claus is going to come and drop gifts on us or fix all our problems. We are fully responsible for all of that. And the more you come to be responsible for the condition of your own mind, for the condition of your own happiness, then you will understand that you have an enormous amount of power in you. And you won't be looking for people or whatever, planets or angels or anybody else to come and rescue you, because you're there already present for yourself. And this is your inner guru, and this is the highest utility of Sagittarius. So I want to just give you the dates for the lunation family. I enjoy having a look through the cycles of the moons, and this can be very helpful for some of you if you want to track this down. I'll put that in the description box below, which most people seem to ignore. Use your mental discernment and recognize that underneath every video, there's actually a whole lot of information for any video that you will see me upload. All the information is there. That's how you can book a reading with me. That's how you can find out a little bit more about the videos that I'm posting, or anything else that you might want to learn about what I'm posting or who I am. It's all linked below, always there. So so that's also about you taking responsibility, meeting me halfway. I put the content out, and you can do that little bit of clicking to find out more, to get the answers to what it is that you want to know more about. And this will be where you'll find these dates. So this lunation is the full moon, meaning the kind of peak of the cycle, that began in 2024 on the 1st of December at 9 degrees and 32 arc minutes of Sagittarius. So it was also with Antares. So the 1st of December 2024 is the new moon that began this particular cycle of the lunar families that we're in. And then if we go back to the 31st of August of 2025, you will find that quarter moon lunation was at 8 degrees and 7 arc minutes of Sagittarius. So that was the opening square, or what we call the first quarter moon. That was where you understood whatever was started or whatever was felt like it changed in August of 2024. You got the feedback and you got a sense of what was going on around that, or pardon me, December 1st of 2024, you got the feedback and you got an understanding of what that was. Interestingly, the 1st of December 2024 was around the time that that Pluto was opposite Mars. So remember, that was the Mars retrograde cycle, and we're going to get this again. So this is an interesting lunation cycle, I think, because here we've just had Mars in a square to Pluto, opening square from January. I mentioned that in a previous video. Mars is now in its opening square from Pluto, and then we're going to have Mars in opposition in October. I think it's the 3rd of October. And that is part of a cycle that we already saw back in 2024, just after Mars left Cancer and started its retrograde cycle from Leo. Remember, there was this dreadful Mars going back and forth between Leo and Cancer, and that was the beginning of or the first week of, it was in November, and again through December, January, and then again in April, especially April 26th of 2025, Mars was in the same position. It will be again in October this year. So there's some resonance here with this lunation cycle too, I should think, because it's calling in those dates that are pretty important. So December 2024, 1st of December, Mars was opposing Pluto then. Not exact at that point, but still really strong opposition. Right, now we come to today, well, at least for this lunation. Today is the 21st of May. On the 31st of May, and by the way, today the Sun is with Uranus, so let's hope that that brings deeper insights as well in a creative way. That's one of the things that can happen here. And this whole week, we've had some fresh energy with Mars moving into Taurus and Venus moving into Cancer. So lots of reasons to think differently. And then, of course, this full moon being a big part of that. Then this lunation is going to start to wane, and the cycle, rather, and the lunar family cycle will wane. And we'll get the 3rd quarter square, and that will be the 28th of February, 2027. And that will be at 9 degrees and 22 arc minutes of Sagittarius. And so you can look ahead and notice that whatever is being realized now, collectively or individually, whatever is in your awareness, is something that will find options or choices or an ability to see things differently, change your course perhaps as of February, the end of February next year. And then finally, it concludes with another lunation family starting. So this one will end on a new moon, and the new moon will take it into a new direction, a new family, and that will be at 5 degrees and 39 arc minutes of Sagittarius on the 28th of November, 2027. And that is a very important moon as well, I find, because it's going to be sextiling Pluto, opposite Uranus, trining Neptune, and trining Ketu, trining the south node, where notice we're getting the square, the nodal square here. So this will become a trine, and that creates this beautiful kite in the sky with all of those outer planets. And the kite formation, or this kind of mini grand trine, is a feature of 2025, 6 and 7. Just the degrees are shifting a little bit, but it's definitely part of the bigger, slower shift that we're in, with key moments, I think, like this full moon, which will be shifting us a little more quickly. So it's not always going to be entirely slow. One thing I forgot to point out that I'm just seeing now is that Chiron is also getting close to the end of Aries at this point, and it's being sextiled by Mercury, which will move into, so it's applying to a sextile with Chiron. So again, whatever is here in terms of our inner sense of belonging or wounding, or a sense of capability, and again, that will be wherever Aries is for those of you who are following these things, this will be something that you will be picking up on at this time too, that you can recognize, okay, there's a new way I can change my thinking. I can use this, because a sextile is something that is, it's something you can use. It's helpful energy. It's an energy of creative expression, but you have to use it. You have to actually step into it. Of course, the stars are only in range of conjunction, so we don't do, for example, a sextile from from Chiron to Betelgeuse. It's going to be something that it's directly in a conjunction within 2 degrees 40 arc minutes of the stars. And depending on the stars, like with Algol, the degree orb is like 2 degrees 10 minutes. So it really depends on the star. But these are the like royal stars. They have 2 degrees 40 arc minutes of orb. And so you can check by conjunction, never by, like, for example, again, we wouldn't say that the sun is opposite Antares. It's, we could say on the board it is, but we don't use it that way. It has to be a conjunction. So again, let's keep astrology real. There are reasons for this. And again, if people are using things in that way, it's not using their inner guru. So let's go sign by sign and see how this is going to impact everybody as we go forward. And what I'll do here is just go backwards to get to Aries on the ascendant. Right, so for Aries, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, you're, of course, part of this dynamic in the sense that Pallas and Saturn are going to be together in your sign for quite some time, and that also is where when Saturn and Pallas are coming together over this period of time and into the middle of June, it's a great opportunity for you to start looking at your life in a bigger picture way. Use that bigger picture awareness. You have a very literal sort of interpretation here, as always, because you're Aries, meaning that you are part of the natural zodiac of alignment of the signs. And so things speak very literally. And so you can also think in terms of strategy, because Pallas has this quite strategic outlook on life. You look systemically, you look in terms of the bigger network of things, the bigger picture, with a sense of the long game. And especially because Saturn is there in your sign for 2 years till April 12th, I think, of 2028. You've got a while to go before you are going to be learning the lessons of self-mastery that Saturn is bringing you. By the way, that's a discount code for those of you who have Saturn in Aries. If this is your Saturn return, self-mastery in caps, all one word, that will get you 10% off a reading with me forever. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be just when Saturn is in Aries. And then here what we find is that that energy I was talking about knowledge and awareness and insight, this is in your house of the mind. So this is really strong in the sense that you can think your way through a creative understanding of what's going on, or communicate with other people in new and different ways that allows you to work from these places of insights. And of course, this is a part of the bigger dynamic of the grand trine that's coming up with Pluto, that's already in application really between Uranus and Pluto, which is quite a long-standing feature. So with Pluto changing your vision of the future and how you connect into society in a general sense and your vision for yourself, this is fantastic. It's a great time to really sit down with yourself and look at what it is that you want, how you want to achieve it. And then with the Moon conjunct Antares in your 9th house, this is something that you can see. There's an awakening to your purpose. There's an awakening or an understanding or an illumination around something that's important to you. If this is on a personal, financial level or a business-related level, this can also be showing you new ways of teaching or working or operating, new contracts, new ways of dealing with people, that will also be based in the thing that you see as your higher purpose right now, or the higher meaning that you're giving something, or what you believe in and what you want to represent going forward. And this is also where we find the moon in the 9th house is ruled by Jupiter in the 4th house, and equally Jupiter is ruled by that moon itself, and so is Venus at this point. But that can also be where you recognize, this is what I need for my personal security. And especially because Venus is ruling Mars in your 2nd house. You've just got rid of Mars, and that might make you feel happy or unhappy, I don't know, but certainly I'm happy that Mars has left Aries because it's pretty much just about killed me. I'm almost burnt out here. But so this Mars for you hopefully feels like you've accomplished something. Now you're getting a bit of a downtime or a slow release, let's say. And that Mars is connecting with this Venus by rulership. And also because we've got this quality of you, this is your ruler, Mars in your second house, using your values, understanding the security, financial security, understanding what you need for happiness or contentment in your experience. What I was saying about the dvesha is that this notion of malcontent, you know, when you're not happy about something and you dwell on it, or you push against it, or you're complaining about it, or you're you know, vocal about the things that you hate or whatever, this is not taking you any further. You need to turn your attention towards what you want more of, how you want to see things, resolve whatever problematic things are there, but without dwelling on the problem, um, including if that's an individual. Um, I think that's just about it. So the nodal axis for you is moving through your sixth house, finishing up that journey in your sixth house of everyday work, health, and issues like that that have been a reflection of big change for you. And then the north node in the 12th house will have brought a lot of attention to your perhaps self-undoing, things that you've been doing, or either what you need to start doing because you haven't been doing them, or things you need to stop doing because you have been doing them. Part of that is this discernment also with Pallas and Saturn in your first house. And then it's in a square to Uranus. So there's something about the way that you communicate, the way that you relate to people, the way you go about your everyday, that is your opportunity for achieving something that has a bigger vision than the usual humdrum of every day. All right, make the most of this, Aries. I will see you in the next video. So Taurus, this lunation is happening in your 8th house of other people's money and other people's values and intimacy and what you share intimately with a married partner, for example, or with really solid friends. It can be emotional and psychological intimacy, not just sexual intimacy, for example. And also whatever you share in terms of morality or in terms of finances and stuff that you get as a support coming from being in relationship with other people. And here maybe there's a realization around where you're not really sharing certain morality or certain ideals with people. And that's probably also part of this Uranus journey that you've been on since last year, middle of 2025, when Uranus went in from July through early November of 2025. You will have already got a little flavor of that sense of my values are changing, or the people around me don't share my values. And I think I need to, in this North Node in Pisces way, look for people who fit my vision of what I'm here for, my vision or my purpose, my sense of identity that is changing. I have changed. Now you've just had these 7-8 years of Uranus in your own sign since April, May 2018. You've changed a lot, and now it's the values that are changing. Equally, your relationship to money, stuff, possessions, whatever you have at your disposal. This is part of this dynamic here. And there may be some awareness that keeps you focused on financial planning or how you're investing in things. So Mercury is ruling your second house, but also rules your fifth house of investments. And there may be some need to change around that too. This can also be with reference to family and children, because the second house is all around family, whatever supports you and how you interact with family, what your family feels like to you. And Mercury, of course, rules the fifth house of children. And indeed, both Mercury and Jupiter represent children in a chart. So we can say that there's something here to do with family, early childhood, siblings, or children in a general sense. And if you have none of that stuff going on in terms of children, it can be your projects as babies, your creative projects being birthed, the children of your mind, as it were. And this is where you, and that is, by the way, if we're going to get back to Sagittarian religion, the notion of sacrificing children was never really meant to be about killing kids. It was about sacrificing your thoughts. Kill the thoughts. The children of your mind are thoughts. Don't kill kids. Please don't do that. And so here what we have is this really strong insight around any of these things that I've just mentioned, but I think especially focus in with this theme on am I sharing morality with the people that I'm doing business with? Am I sharing the same values with my spouse, with my friends, with the people around me? Is this the thing that will make me a greater person, that it will make me feel better about myself? Saturn and Pallas in the 12th house. Equally, of course, Neptune, but I have to stop somewhere, so we're not really focusing on Neptune this time. But Saturn with Pallas, which is in a sextile to this lunation and a trine, sextile to the sun and then a trine to the moon. They are talking about having a bigger picture for a sense of a long run or a serious way of working through this bigger vision of the way you fit into your life or the way that life is actually working for you, um, and how you want that to shape up. Because remember that very soon you're going to have, by the end of July, 27th of July, the North Node is going into your 10th house. This is a major change. And of course, I'll talk more about that as we get a little bit closer. But this is a major change for you, Taurus, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. So especially if you are Taurus Ascendant, this will be literally in the 10th house, but it doesn't matter. If it's from your Moon or from your Sun, you will have a 10th house experience of the North Node, meaning that you're growing in your role or you're growing in the way that you see yourself. And what is starting at this point is an awareness of where you will grow most with the support of your morality or the people who share that with you. So this is something you can work on from the inside out, or through collective sharing of ideas, or collective sharing of, I don't know, business idea, for example, or project, teaching project even. Jupiter is in your third with Venus. Um, and then, of course, Mars is in your first house. So you are one of these signs, because you're a fixed Earth sign, that you need a bit of a kick in the backside to get going. And now you've got it. So you've got Mars in your first house of self. And this is giving you a little bit of motivation and enthusiasm. And do pay attention to the introduction to hear more about why that might matter for you. But it's definitely going to give you more drive, more enthusiasm. Beware of stubbornly sticking with things that have been happening in the past, but not necessarily working out for you. And that's where you want to sharpen up using all of that Mercury, Uranus, the square to the nodes, for deeper insights, and take that through what you find important now, because that will not be the same as the same old, same old. And this is where you want to question, again, your beliefs and what you have faith in, which might include yourself. Where am I just recycling old ideas and old faith in things and expecting different results? So this would be a good time to really examine all of that. All right, Taurus, I'll see you in the next video. So Gemini, this lunation, of course, goes across your first and seventh house of yourself and relationships, yourself and the other, yourself and a business partner, yourself and how you relate. And this will show you something, either coming through the other, coming back at you from another, or going towards another in a way that you need to address an issue or a relationship or a dynamic or a partnership of some kind that is requiring you to change a little bit, or change or present yourself in a different way, present your usual cheerful self, your social, adaptable self. But beware that when you're not in integrity, so when we look at Aldebaran, that is about integrity, but that is not the significator of Gemini. Remember that Gemini has as a shadow that capacity for being two-faced and not actually being reliable, not actually being in integrity. It's the sign across the way that is known more for that integrity. So this is where your flexibility and adaptability can be used wisely, but should not necessarily apply to your morality. If your morals are too flexible, they're not there. So this could be something to reflect on. How am I operating from all of that? How am I operating from my own list of priorities and morality that keeps me feeling like I can live in this particular way and feel supported, feel honored, feel valued, and not end up with difficulties later on. And especially because Saturn is in your 11th house, with Pallas, with Neptune, of course, I'm not focusing too much on every aspect here. It's too much for one delineation. but it's going to show you who your friends are, who are your true and lasting pals. And this will give you also a bigger picture. That is part of where Pluto is going in your ninth house, to give you a bigger picture vision for the greater meaning or purpose that you have at this time in your life, and what your life is all about, and who should share that journey with you. And this is ongoing for 2 years. So until mid-April, 12th of April 2028, you've got Saturn changing your context in your networks or in your friends groups or in society. And it's pretty serious. It's showing up people who are not going to be there for you. With Neptune, you may find that you have to go through a few incidences of betrayal, or maybe you're the one that lets people down, and then people that you know, how did that make them feel, or how did that apply in your own experience of life? So one of the challenges for Gemini is to be a little bit frivolous or a little bit light, a little bit sort of easy come, easy go. And that is part of what gives you your social charm. But it can be super annoying if you have to apply that in a committed relationship. And if this is what's going on, you're going to hear from your partner. So if you want that partnership to last, or if you want to build on friendships or business partners or a long-term relationship, you really want to take that to heart and really adapt, think through what it is you want to do. Now, because so much of this activity is in your angular houses, so the first, the fourth, the seventh, and the 10th houses are like the backbone of your chart. You can think of this as creating something that is establishing important things for a longer vision. And this will be something that ties into that Saturn palace, where you're getting a bigger picture for how you want things to shape up, how you want to play a role in your life going forward. And maybe this has to do with you stepping out in a different way, stepping up in a different way. You've got the North Node in the 10th house, so personal ambitions may be growing based on, again, this Jupiterian value. Maybe finances, quite literally, the value of stuff or the value you attribute to your income, for example. What price your job, and what does your job cost you in the moral sense or in the physical sense even? Is it exhausting you? Is it depleting you morally? So all of these things I think are worth paying attention to, especially as we go through pretty much the last month of Jupiter in your second house. This is the final countdown, as it were, of Jupiter in your second house, and it's with Venus. So that's something that you keep in mind in terms of not only your literal material well-being and support and finances, but also in terms of your um, personal sense of self-worth and the values you attribute to things. So Venus rules your 12th, which is hidden things. That can be relationships that are hidden. Beware when Mars goes in the 12th, that if there are hidden relationships, things that are indiscretions with somebody, or a relationship that's causing you some kind of expense or blowback or difficulty, that needs to be resolved. And that would be one of these things that, again, would be aligned with your own integrity. And to maintain your integrity would be, I think, the long run benefit of this particular moment in time. So that Mars is also going to show you where you are experiencing your own self undoing, things that are not working for you, that you can actually put some energy into and recognize, no, we're done here. This is an energy. It can be either highly sexual, or it can be around an energy of being like, no, we're not doing that anymore. So we're finishing this. And Venus is there in the second house, again, reflecting this notion of values, the notion of family, the notion of energetic or emotional bonding with somebody, with family, with females, with money, all those Venusian things. But also it can reflect stories. Venus can also reflect stories of your fifth house of romance and children, of course, business, like entrepreneurial business and creativity and all that fifth house stuff, love, romance, fun. So whatever this is, if you are in an experience of something that may cause some disruption, you want to think big picture, think long term, and say, is this worth it? Am I using my inner guidance, or am I acting from a place of short-term gain? Experiencing something insightful and fun for the moment, but not thinking of the longer term consequences, because there will be some reputational aspect to this if it's not something working in your favor in the long run. But it can be incredibly empowering for you to really work through yourself as you just show yourself to be who you are, with your ruler in the first house and the sun on Aldebaran, especially if you also share a degree around 10 degrees plus or minus 2 degrees 40 minutes in Gemini. That will be something significant for you to pay attention to, because then that story of integrity will be even more personally meaningful for you, especially if that's your natal sun. So if this is your birthday, or if you have your birthday, let's say from the 30th of May until the 1st or 2nd of June, this is a story to pay attention to for you. All right, Gemini, make the most of it. I'll see you in the next video. Cancer, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. This is happening in your 6th house of work, your health, an awareness of how you spend your everyday. What is that costing you? Is there some aspect of the work that you're doing where you're realizing that you need to, I don't know, question that? Is it bringing you value? Is it not bringing you value? What you're realizing about your job or the relationship you have to obligations, how you might need to manage obligations, manage work. It can be really practical, like workload stuff, or it can be how you feel about your job, because this is your ruler in the 6th house. So there's a feeling that can be like an imposition. This is something that feels not so comfortable when the moon is in the 6th house, especially as the ruler of the 1st house. But here with Antares, there can be something that puts you in a situation of a lot of action, taking action. This can be quite favorable in many ways, having to kind of slog through something that is important to you, and it's creating something that is going to have a long-term consequence. It's also going to be, because Mars is in your 11th house, there can be something about whatever this bigger vision is that is part of this configuration, as I delineated in the introduction. There's something that's going to impact your social life or the connection that you have with networks and friends, or even your longer term future or income, because of course this is the 11th house of gains, and it's especially the income from what you do. So the 10th house being the thing that you do in the world, the 11th house being what you get from that, whether it be accolades or whether it be money. It's what you receive from the thing that you are known for in your 10th house. So if this is about making an effort, then recognize ways of working in such a way that it gives you long-term results. Now, I think this is relatively easy for you in the sense that you have a lot of clarity, or at least, again, potentially moral clarity in the 12th house. A lot of change there in terms of recognizing hidden issues, hidden dynamics that might hold you back, or things that are distractions, let's say, from your goals, and you can become quite keenly aware of all of that. We still have the North Node and Fomalhaut with the North Node in your 9th house of your purpose. So this is part of reforming your purpose. And the square that's coming from Uranus to the nodal axis is also bringing that sense of innovation and change around purpose. Venus is meeting up with Jupiter in the 1st house. I'm going to tell you in a different video why that's not necessarily going to bring good luck, but we'll have a look at that. But it's beats a kick in the pants, Cancer. We'll take it, right? I'm Cancer Sun and, sorry, Cancer Rising and Moon. Not an uncomfortable thing, but don't expect things to rain down on you in terms of great blessings, because here again, there's stuff that we need to take action in. And often Jupiter works in oblique ways. It's not working directly, specifically in the place that it is, because often with the Jupiter in the 1st, there's this feeling of a lot, just a lot going on. That's certainly how I'm feeling it anyway. And that Jupiter is what is ruling this moon, putting a lot now in the house of work, as it would anyway, because it rules your 6th house, which is one of the reasons we'll look at why that's not so great for Cancer. And then, of course, it's about your higher purpose as well. So there may have been, again, part of this bigger story, which we'll touch on in that video, around situations where you're questioning the work that you do, or questioning the motivation behind it. This it can be a reference to your father. So the 9th house is father figures, gurus, God, spirit. So there may be something there that is part of a dynamic that you're having to pay attention to as well. The palace and Saturn is, again, with reference to having a sense of a bigger scope of action or a bigger field of vision that is going to establish something longer term. So a really good time to, I think, generally speaking, take it seriously, whatever it is that you're doing. If there's any kind of health issue in this sense, it's not to say that there should be because of this configuration. I'm just saying if that's your precondition, and then this lunation comes along, it will show you what that is, and then you will be able to find your way through that. You'll be able to understand what it is that's causing that, and it may be self-indulgence in this case, for example, with Jupiter in the first, especially because Venus is also there, so watch out for the treats. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. I think there's a lot more that you will also glean from the video that I will present shortly on the Venus Jupiter and everything else that's happening in the next couple of weeks. So that will come in the next couple of days, or maybe even tomorrow. But I can't promise anything because I'm one of you. I've got this moon aspect looming, and I've got so many things on my plate, including moving on this day, going back to Brussels to spend the summer and a few months there. All right, so I'll see you in the next video. Leo, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. This is lovely in the sense that you have a moon that is trinal to you, and the Sun, which is the opposite, of course, from the moon, this is always an opposition when we're having a full moon, is in your 11th house, giving you a glimpse of energies that are coming with a vision for your future or a sense of what it is that you want to see happen going down the line. The sun is the ruler for your chart, and your sun is being blessed by being connected to Aldebaran. And with the moon on Antares in the 5th house, you may realize something about your creative exploits or something that you want to express of yourself that needs to come through something a bit more effortful, that may require a little bit more potential sincerity. And I say that in the sense of when I've been seeing a lot of Leos of all descriptions lately, Leo, Ascendant, Sun, Moon, whatever, a lot of Leo energy in my readings lately, especially in the urgent ones, which is why I'm also overworked. But there's this belief that Leo is all about like, hey, look at me, look, am I not fabulous? But this is actually most often the thing that Leo struggles with the most. And so what I would say here is that this is an opportunity to really understand your dynamic around where you allow yourself to express fully who you are, coming through that place of your sincerity, coming through that place of, using, Leo is also one of those signs that is really strong on integrity. And that is because the sun is the thing that we can rely on the most in life, right? And so this is why Leo suffers often with issues around the father slash solar figure. That absence of integrity is creating an absence of identity and a difficulty around identifying. So notice that this could be an opportunity for you to reclaim that. Saturn and Pallas are up in your house of the father, house of God, house of your higher purpose and meaning, house of what you believe in. And it's showing you in many ways how you can restructure that relationship with yourself, take self-mastery in this way, that you see this aspect of your life as part of your responsibility, and don't stick with the idea that, something happened before and therefore this is how I am. You have Pluto in the opposite sign as well. That's part of you changing the way you show up in relationships. What you tolerate, any power struggles that are there will be for your learning. Don't get involved in bickering for the sake of bickering, but use whatever power dynamics are there in relationship for your personal growth. Take the high road, take the lessons from it, and this would be a great opportunity for you to really look at that. Especially because you've got Mars in the 10th, so it can have you feeling a little bullshy around ambition, personal drive, marriage, your social status, the way that you deal with hierarchy. So this could be a good place to assert yourself, but again, being aware of being overly aggressive, for example, showing up in a way that is action-oriented, taking charge of things. That's all great, but beware of feeling that you might come across as a threat to people who are dealing with you, especially hierarchical people. And especially because that Pluto is there. So you might unconsciously not realize it, but you're unconsciously setting yourself up for these power struggles. So take care to recognize from the inside out your own right to your expression, to radiate like the sun in its effulgence and be that. And here we find Venus and Jupiter in your 12th house. Venus is ruling your 10th, where we find that Mars. And there's something here that you can learn from, maybe things that are happening behind the scenes or aspects of yourself where maybe, again, it can be about fine-tuning your self-expression. Jupiter rules your 8th house and it rules your 5th house. So this could also be something to do with a romantic relationship or a relational quality. It could be, in some cases, some of you are coming literally out of the closet. That can be something, I mean, I use that old-fashioned expression, but you know what I mean, for whatever that means, whether it's about identifying a new relationship or a new sexuality or a new way of seeing yourself through whatever gender or whatever thing. Jupiter's coming into your 1st house very soon, by the end of June. And so you're going to shine a lot more, and that's going to impact those houses, the 8th and the 5th. So we'll talk more about that there. But definitely, really come back to yourself and be true to yourself. Use that inner instinct, use that deep capacity for being centered in your own heart, centered in your self-awareness, recognizing that shining and casting that sun on others doesn't mean that you have to take up all the space, all the oxygen. It just means that you are being you. And what is remarkable about the sun is that it casts a light on everybody. It's because of the sun that we see this moon. So you cast your light on others as part of the expression of yourself. So it's not all about you. That's the shadow side of Leo, quite literally the shadow that Leo casts. So there we are. I'm going to come back and explain a little bit more about that when we talk about the Jupiter-Venus and some other things that are going to be relevant around the early part of June. So I will be back soon and make the most of this. I'll see you again then. And so we have Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. This lunation is happening in your 4th house of your feelings, your emotional life, your psychological nature. It puts the moon in house of home and family, potentially mother as well, relationships with your, just whatever feels like it's grounding you, or whatever feels like it's establishing something that you can rely upon. And here, there may be some disruption to all of those things. The moon in the 4th house, paradoxically, is actually a little disruptive. It can create some unsettled feelings, or feeling, especially because it's a Jupiter-ruled moon. And Jupiter is off wandering in the 11th house, trying to find some greener pastures or whatever up there in the 11th, and it's in the house of its joy, so having a great time doing that. But it can actually disrupt home. Maybe home is a new vision of home is coming from a place of looking for a new home. Maybe home is reliant on the work that you're doing or your marital status. So that's been a topic you will have heard me speaking about a lot, because you've got the nodes. South node in your 1st house, 7th house has the relational house has the north node passing through until the 27th of July. So new ways of being in relationship, new ways of seeing yourself, letting go of ways of being in your life. And here you're seeing something about what you need to be happy, what you need to feel grounded, what you require to take action on, especially because of Antares. What do you need to do? And in what way do you want to deal with that? And it's going to impact directly your vision of your future, or social life, or your connection with an elder sibling, potentially. All of which are in that 11th house energy, where we find Venus as well as the exalted Jupiter. Exalted does not mean great and good, by the way. It means that it's doing its thing. So Jupiter might have you so focused on the future that you're really not here and now. And so that could also be where the moon helps you to recognize that you need more of yourself within yourself. You need to come home to yourself in a very metaphorical or even a literal way. Pluto is in your 6th house, so again, that can play into this need to take care of your health. That will be dependent very strongly on your everyday experiences, healthcare, schedule, all those different things. Saturn is in the 8th house with Pallas, and of course, I'm not saying you're going to get sick, by the way. Just to clarify, I'm not saying you're going to get sick. I'm saying that might be an issue for some of you. Statistically speaking, it probably will be. Saturn, and that would be around your schedule, right? So around how you're working mentally and physically with what you have been given in this lifetime. And so Saturn with Pallas in the 8th house can really show you some of the things that are underpinning what it means to be human, especially because Neptune is there as well. Intimacy in a general sense, like being intimate with somebody, what it feels like, are you finding your way intimately with somebody? Are you able to restructure a relationship in such a way that it brings you something more lasting? Even if it's maybe becoming a bit run-of-the-mill, that's okay. Everybody goes through a fallow period or through a period of things being a little bit less exciting. Maybe that's what this is all about too, but it doesn't mean that the relationship is wrong. So, and there again, if we look at the Jupiter ruling this lunation, beware of assuming that greener pastures will bring you more happiness. Sit with yourself, listen deep inside. So the 8th house is also the occult. It's the wisdom of being alive. It's astrology. It's all of the ways of divining things between the 8th and the 9th. The divination factor is very strong with this lunation because Mars is ruling the 8th and is in the 9th. For Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Rising. And so this is something that you might find very appealing, or that you're starting to look at things from this much more spiritual or insightful place. You're overcoming fear because you're seeing a bigger picture. You're no longer worried about the things that come day to day, but rather you're seeing how it all starts to fit together. And there we also find Uranus in the top of your chart, squaring the nodes that are here in your 1st house of self and the 7th of relationship. And Uranus is in the house of your kind of role that you play socially, like how people see you, for example, or how people relate to you, or how you relate to the way that you contribute in the world. So it doesn't have to mean that it's your career. It can be what you do out in the world, whether you're a housewife or a house husband for that matter, or a person who is recognized as the village doctor or whatever. That's the 10th house. Or you can be recognized as being that person who's just retired. That's the 10th house. It's how people see you and how you show yourself to people. So this is changing one way or another. It's your social status. So again, it can be, as I mentioned, a referral to marital status. And then Jupiter, your ruler, is up there in its other sign, Gemini. This is the daytime Mercury. So Mercury in Gemini is the daytime Mercury, much more social, more chatty. So it can also have you feeling like you want to go out and be more curious about what your future holds, or what it is that you want to accomplish, or how you want to express all of that. Especially if there's a realization around your day-to-day that you're thinking, now this job is killing me, I gotta change, or whatever that might entail. So this is a great time for you to use that insight and recognize that there's this new invitation in the way that you're showing up. Think of the legacy you want to leave behind. Mars is in your 9th house, giving you a lot of drive in terms of your sense of purpose, or at least, using an understanding of wisdom, applying that wisdom, applying your belief, applying your faith. Yeah, I think that's all we need to say here. It's exciting times for you. I think this is actually a really nice opportunity for you to sit with yourself, sit still, listen, and understand yourself from the inside, so that you know how to behave going forward in your own sort of self-guided way as you go forward. Not behave because somebody says this is how to behave, but you embody that. You're looking from here, from this 4th house way of recognizing what I need to feel content. All right, so good luck with all of that. Then Virgo, I'll see you in the next video. Libra, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. You've got your ruler up in the 10th house of your social sort of recognition, or how you apply yourself outwardly, what your impact is socially, what your ambitions are socially. It's kind of like putting yourself up there, and that's with Jupiter, and we'll get to that in a separate video. But this lunation itself could be, in an interesting way, contributing that from your everyday connections. Like your third house is the neighborhood and the social connections that you have when you drop off your clothes at the laundromat or whatever, or the golf pals and stuff like that. And it's this moon in the third house, which is the joy of the moon, incidentally, which is ruling the 10th house, and Jupiter, which is ruling the lunation, is there in Cancer, the sign of the moon. So there's this what we call a mutual generosity there, and that is tying in whatever's going on here, whether it be around connections that you have with people, or around using your willpower, using your drive and personal goal settings for this moment. This is more like short-term goals. Um, Using the way that you communicate, or the way that you're learning or teaching something, in order to accelerate something that's going on in the 10th house, which is about a personal ambition. And then, of course, opposing the lunation is the sun, which is what makes it a full moon. And the sun is in the house of its joy. So whenever you have the Sagittarius full moon, Libra, you're always going to have the sun and the moon in the houses of the joy of those luminaries. And so you can enjoy these full moons perhaps more than others, in some way, because it brings you a heightened awareness of what it is that you're here for, how you want to be social, how you want to connect in a way that feels social and involved. And it's all the more so because annually for the next 7 years, we're going to have Uranus up there at the time of these any event that's coming up in Gemini. But here, with the opposition from the moon in your third house, it pulls in the Uranus too. And Uranus is actually in a square to the nodal axis, which is from the sixth house perspective, in the house of your work, where this North Node has been pulling in a lot of awareness around your job or your sense of obligation, what you need to take responsibility for. There may have been quite a lot of focus on that for you since the beginning of 2025. And then the South Node in the 12th house, giving you a completely different spiritual awareness of yourself. Maybe a lot more ease in letting go of aspects of your life, letting go of bad habits, letting go of behavior or ways of undermining yourself. The hyper perfectionism that Libra can be known for is because Virgo is in the 12th. So this can be where the South Node has helped you clear that out. And then the square to Uranus is giving you insights. It's giving you insights around, what does my life mean to me? And the moon is giving you an idea of what practically to apply, because the third house is about change. It's about practical application of willpower. It's about moving in this direction of whatever it is that I want now. And you're being shown that. Saturn and Pallas are in your house of relationships, so that's opposing you. And Saturn is your exaltation ruler, so there's something here that's quite important to pay attention to in terms of re-establishing a framework, let's say, for your relationships, or some foundation for the way you relate. And that can bring your relationships to a much more serious place, or it can help you see the way that relationships in your life are impacting you and the rest of your life. This is all the more true because we've got this square coming. Well, it's just separating. Venus is separating from a square that she had created 2 days before with Saturn at this time. And Venus, being your ruler, is very important to you. And so that dynamic of relationship has been something important for you at this time. But the impact of Saturn with Pallas is giving you an opportunity to see some bigger influence of how your relationship, and including maybe business partnership as well, or the way that you relate, the people to whom you relate, all of that is shaping something in your life that you're now putting together in a bigger picture way. Or if you haven't been, then use this energy of this full moon to really notice that. Am I meeting my personal goals? Am I connecting with people, let's say, in the way that I want to? With that moon in the third house, it's about your mind, shaping your connections, shaping your the way that you connect with people or speak to them, communicate with people, communications of all kinds in all different ways, like exchanges and even transportation for that matter. So all these different ways that you're connecting with other people. And then Saturn with Pallas is there also showing you that there's a need to really look broadly at what is the influence of this person or these relationships or this manner in which I relate on the bigger picture of my life. Yeah, I think that's kind of it for now. I'm going to come back and talk more about this Jupiter-Venus in your 10th house, which will be significant for you because Venus is your ruler. So we will look at that more in a day or two, okay? Take care, and I'll see you next time. So for Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, this lunation is in your second house of values, your family potentially. Anything that supports you is the second house, and also your feelings of self-worth or the values that you apply to things. So the value you give yourself, but the value that you give other things and money, for example. Whatever is a resource that is at your disposition, resources that are available to you, like money in your own bank account, for example, but also think of yourself in terms of a resource, like what am I bringing to the table? That's the second house. It can also be with reference to investments of some kind, and especially because the North Node is in the fifth, and it's ruled by Jupiter up in the ninth. This could be a very fortunate time to be working on planning your investments. I was about to say gambling, but that I'm not going to suggest that you gamble. I'm just saying that can be something that can bring a certain amount of success, but it's dependent on your natal chart. So it's not because of these transits that this is going to bring success. It will always be with reference to your natal chart. So if you have a natal chart set that says, no, money just doesn't fall on my head, then this is not going to happen, for example. But still, it's important to keep that in mind in the sense that there is this potential for making wise choices with integrity. You go ahead and listen to the introduction around my money, around the things that I do. This might be around your children. There might be something you're planning for. It could be literally planning for a child, or it could be that you're planning for the children themselves to have a nest egg or have some kind of university fund or something like that. And then Jupiter, of course, in the ninth house is the ruler of both this lunation in your second house of money and all of those things that support you, and the fifth house of children or your creative self-expression, love, romance, all those different things. And Jupiter in the ninth house could establish a new foundation for relationship potentially, because your ruler is in the seventh house of relationship, and it's being ruled by Venus, which is up there with Jupiter. Now, this is an extended thing, not just at this lunation, because that also applies when, because Venus and Jupiter are pretty much most of June together there in your ninth house. So this could hold, and then same with Mars, your ruler. So this could be go to a conference, go to higher education, go travel the world. Venus rules your 12th as well. Go learn something. Like not the ABCDs, but learn something, learn about some philosophy, go to a yoga retreat, go to a philosophical, I don't know, workshop or something like that. Go to court, for that matter. You meet the love of your life. The judge turns out to be the love of your life. The defense lawyer is the love of your life. Something like this can happen. Again, that depends on your natal chart, but everything's lining up quite nicely, and I'm getting pretty excited for you about this little romance. And so the other aspect of Mars, which is, of course, your natal ruler, is your ascendant ruler, or sun ruler, or moon ruler. It rules your sixth house of overcoming obstacles, which is, again, why I kind of referenced the court thing. So I'm only half joking there. Get yourself a parking ticket, maybe, if you're looking for love. And then here what we're finding is Saturn and Pallas in the sixth house. So there's something about the way that you recognize the impact of your small little, like incremental day-to-day decisions, and the way that you're working, the health choices you're making, the structure of your day, the way that you need to handle obstacles, the way that you need to deal with stuff. Or is that dealing with your spouse, for example? Is that dealing with a colleague? Is that dealing with a business partner? Whatever that is, because we're talking about Mars here with the rulership, the Mars in the seventh. Whatever this is, look at this from the big picture lens. It's something that's impacting you in so many ways that will have longevity. Something with that Palace and Saturn is going to connect in a way that brings you some new pattern. Let's say there's something new coming in here. In your everyday experience or in the awareness of that, that you realize, oh, I thought that was insignificant, but it's like everything. This, for example, could be around recognizing that you need more sleep. Just basics like that, that the getting more sleep is part of how you plug into every other part of your life, for example. And again, the values that you attribute to things is what is being highlighted here. Am I putting sufficient value on me? Am I giving myself the care I need to be well? And then, of course, all the rest of the activity is happening in your eighth house, where you're understanding so much. You're getting some deep insight, deep understanding. This is a deep psychological house, the eighth house, and you also have Pluto, your modern ruler, in the fourth. So there's a lot going on for Scorpio in general in terms of your deeper awareness and deeper psychology, deeper awareness of how you operate in more private ways, more hidden ways. How that might be influencing you, how your family has been influencing you, family patterns, family secrets. You might be unveiling some family secrets here in so many different ways that can be insightful. It can be you realizing things, or it can be a realization that comes through somebody speaking about something that they've wanted to talk about. Or you going to a therapist, for example, and then having some insight based on some higher vision, or going to an astrologer for that matter, or being an astrologer and getting insight from all these things. That all of that is part of this story as well. Marriage is part of this dynamic here between with your ruler in the seventh and the eighth house being so strong. So what's going on in marriage? What's going on in intimate partnerships? Is there something about money? Because the axis of where the moon and the sun are, the second and eighth house, is also about money. Can also relate to trust issues, because that's also part of your life path, life story for Scorpio, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, is to understand trust. Trust yourself is the answer to that one. Don't trust other people. Always trust yourself, and you don't need to worry about trusting other people. So that's what this perhaps also can be showing you. You realize, oh, I already understood something. I was just ignoring it. And then really start to pay attention through that morality, using that inner guru, as we were talking about in the introduction. All right, so good luck with all of that then, Scorpio. I'll see you in the next video. Sagittarius, you guessed it, your insightful, brainy brain knows that this is your full moon, and this is the one that you get this year, so make the best use of it. It's a brilliant new moon for you because your ruler, Jupiter, is exalted. And Jupiter in the eighth house, it's a kind of an uncomfortable paradox for Sagittarius, that it's Jupiter is exalted in a difficult house like the eighth house. And yet, one of the reasons that Sagittarius is known for having its faith, high and enduring faith, is because your ruler is exalted in the eighth house. And it means that you can somehow keep the faith and have trust that things will be okay, even through crisis, which is what the eighth house represents. And so there's something that keeps you going, one foot in front of another, something that gives you a kind of a quiet faith or belief in something that is mysterious. It's not clear. Of course, this also can be with reference to your own well-being or psychological well-being, or difficulties that you may have overcome or that you're working through right now. Venus there is helpful in so many other ways as well, bringing you some maybe good relationship energy, and energy of more harmony within, or harmony within a relationship in general. There's a lot going on in your relationship sector because, of course, the other luminary, the sun, is in your seventh house of relating, and that's what's reflecting back on you, where the moon is in your first house of self. And you're, just kind of driving your everyday. This is very significant what's going on here. I already mentioned that for Gemini for the same reasons, but here we flipped the chart and now you're on the ascendant. And that means that your first, fourth, seventh, and 10th houses are really significantly influenced here at this full moon. So this will be something very important for you with the exalted Jupiter, which you will not have now for 12 more years. So when your ruler is exalted in this really unusual configuration of this lunation, where also you've got a square from Uranus in your house of relationships and how you relate and the way that you relate to others and to whom you relate in this square to the nodal axis, there's a lot that can change around your standing, around your social standing, or around your relationship dynamic, maybe coming into a new relationship, a new unusual dynamic of relationship. You, because Sagittarius has Gemini on the 7th house, you like a lot of flexibility and freedom in your relating quality, and this will be on steroids now for the next 7 years as we've got Uranus there. And so maybe this is what that's about. It's like, you know, honey, I need more space, whatever, or honey, I need this to look different. Maybe we need to move in together, you know, whatever the thing is, because the North Node is in the 4th, and it's also ruled by your ruler, Jupiter, which is in the 8th house. Maybe this is about finances, money, how you share your resources, money coming to you. This could be very beneficial. You might have received money or will be receiving money. Money can be a problem. Like the way the Indians look at that astrologically is that Jupiter, wherever Jupiter is, causes problems. I'm going to talk more about that in the next video. So again, you know, we have to beware of saying Jupiter is all positive, that it's all good stuff. It can be full of grace, for sure, especially when it's exalted, but it's wherever Jupiter is, it's creating more of something. So whatever the more is, you know, are you yourself struggling with where you want to go in life, what you want to deal with, how you want to get there? That's what Jupiter is bringing your awareness to. So again, I would need to know you personally to give you better information than that, but just know that there's going to be something here that's very important for you, and it's determining where you're going in your life in a way that feels more grounded, more important to you right now. It's going to really reflect relational dynamics for a long time to come. So use this discernment, use this awareness, this self-awareness in a way that brings you a long-term benefit overall. Saturn is with Pallas in your 5th house of self-expression. So here again is an invitation to use that sense of greater wisdom, an awareness of your, you know, insightful, inspiring nature. You're one of the fire trines. And fire is all about inspiration, and using that in a way that leaves you with a longer term, bigger picture sense of what happiness means to you, like where the North Node is helping you find what you need to be happy and to focus in on that, focus in on what feels stable, grounded, important, that might come through your lineage or might come through your just internal nature or physical presence. Where am I living, for example? But with the 5th house, it's like how you're expressing all of that. You know, the 4th house is showing you what it is and what it feels like, and then the 5th house is like, yeah, what are you going to do about it? And here, Saturn is saying, make something lasting or create something meaningful that also connects you in different ways or connects different aspects of your life in multifold ways. So Pluto and Uranus for you are in very social houses, and they're trinal for a very long time to come. And that gives you a lot of support from the way that you communicate, the way you express yourself, understanding, teaching, sharing things. Again, the energy of relationship just being so big for you right now. And of course, the energy of work as well, because the South Node is there, also ruled by this Mercury in your 7th, and it's been there now for a year and a half, pretty much. Where since the beginning of 2025, the South Node has been showing you where you're kind of done with whatever it has been that you are working at. Your personal ambitions are changing over the last year and a half. This continues for 2 more months. And so this is a great opportunity also to see, like, you know, who fits into this bigger picture that I'm looking at, and how am I expressing that in a way that can be durable. And then, of course, Mars in your 6th house, this is good. Mars is actually in its joy in the 6th house. It's not particularly comfortable in Taurus, but it will give you persistence at the very least. So as long as you can avoid conflict with employees or colleagues or the lady at the post office or whatever, don't get involved in difficulties around the day-to-day stuff. But you have the resistance and the capacity to overcome things when Mars is in the 6th house. Gives you determination and a steadiness of like we'll get through this. And especially because Venus is ruling from the 8th house, it's allowing you, with the wisdom of Jupiter, ideally, your ruler, to guide your way through crisis, or guide your way through things that feel like really maybe heavy or difficult challenges in some cases. Certainly, I know quite a lot of Sagittarian clients of mine that I've known over the years, the recent years, it's not been an easy time. And I have a couple of close friends also with a very strong Sagittarian signature. It's not been an easy time. This is clear. And so this is a great opportunity for some deeper insights, some real personal insights and wisdom, how to use your energy strategically, how to live your life strategically for your greater good. And then, of course, for ideally the greater good of everyone. But if you're doing your thing with the high standards, um, your own moral judgment and your own integrity, other people will benefit. That's just how that works. And if you take the objective off yourself, which is, I think, a healthy thing to do when you've got Saturn there in Aries in your 5th house, take much of the lens off you and see how you personally can use yourself to contribute in a bigger way. All right, let's move on from Sagittarius. I'll see you in the next video when we talk about your ruler with Venus in Cancer. Bye for now. So Capricorn, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, you have this lunation in your 12th house. It's a hidden house from our conscious awareness or from our visual field. Everything behind closed doors, closed eyes, faraway lands, people way far away, overseas, abroad, etc. That's the 12th house. Now, this can also be what we understand as the house of self-undoing, things that happen in ways that we repeat as like bad habits, for example, things that are that are within our unconscious awareness at the very least, but may not be always in our awareness. So we can put addictions there potentially as well. Since Jupiter is in the 7th house, which is ruling that 12th house, we might have to look at issues of qualities of relationship that may or may not be supporting you. That would be a good thing to pay attention to anyway, because you've got the North Node in the 3rd house, which represents needing to choose something. And that's been a year and a half already, so this is not a new story. It's just that the moon is really highlighting that. What is the choice that needs to be made? With the moon in the 12th, there may be a decision around moving, because and when I say moving, it's like far away, moving far away, or retreating, going on retreat physically, or taking retirement. All of those can apply. So this would be a good lunation to sit with yourself and decide if any of the above applies, and if that's a good thing for you to do, because we've also got the Uranus squaring the nodes at this time, and it does really shift the energy of your day-to-day life, with the South Node having gone through your house of purpose, your higher vision for your life, your higher purpose and meaning, and changing that for the last year and a half, kind of like just means less and less to me, doesn't really float my boat anymore. So this is where you want to look at that potential for major insights around change that have an impact on your health and your day-to-day work, on your day-to-day life in general. You know, for example, if you are retiring, have you got something to keep you busy or get you out of bed, for example? So we've got Saturn, your ruler, in the 4th. So finding that comfort or the security or the feeling of contentment is really a big part of this. That can be literally to do with property, how you're using whatever investments or property you have. The exaltation ruler for Capricorn is Mars, and that's in your 5th house. And it's ruled by Venus in your 7th house. So there can be something here around investing or business partnerships or life partnerships that are all intertwined with this decision around whatever it is that's changing for you, that is really going to impact your day-to-day life, but it's also coming through a deeper knowing. You're coming into a deeper intuitive understanding of what you want now going forward. And here what we find as well is that Pluto is also ruled by this Saturn. Pluto in your 2nd house of resources and the family. Did I say yes, Saturn? And so Saturn, your ruler, is with Palace and giving you a lot of a kind of a bigger concept of what it is that you are dealing with, or what how all of this shift, what you feel you need to be content or happy or safe, secure, etc., how it all takes shape in a bigger pattern of your life, and how that might impact your family, how that might impact your children, because Mars is in the 5th house of children, ruling the 4th. Yeah, so this is a big opportunity to consider things that are maybe under the radar for you much of the time. The impact of letting go, the impact of recognizing the importance, we could say, of having a spiritual perspective on life. And I don't care what that is for you. Planet Zorg, whatever is your spiritual guide, you want to tap into that and have that as something that you can work with to help you focus on your intuition, focus on your awareness. With the ruler of your ascendant, sun and moon, in the 4th house, this is a restructuring period of your life for 2 years. It's a period of really nuts and bolts restructuring, but the 4th house also is the psychological and emotional foundation of your life. And so you want to also look at that, restructuring yourself psychologically. If there has been some struggle, a little depression or stress and worry, which I wouldn't be surprised since the middle of 2025, this is what you want to put your focus on. You're going to have Jupiter moving into your 8th house from the end of June, which is a fantastic opportunity to work with deep understanding, deep wisdom, counseling, working on psychological stuff if there's anything there, or learning much more about the mysteries of life. And so you're here, all of this is part of where you're going. All from this understanding of what is more hidden to you. This could also be about realization of things coming through flashes of insight or dreams, or from, again, things that come from people who are far away, getting a different perspective on things in a different way, packaged by somebody who comes from faraway lands. And you're learning from that. Okay, Capricorn, I'll see you in the next video. Oh, and by the way, we will look at this Jupiter and Venus in your 7th and understand the role that plays in the early weeks of June as well. So we won't focus too much on that right now. I'll see you again soon. Aquarius, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant. So this lunation is in your 11th house of the future, which is very resonant with Aquarius. So this is really taking your attention out into the vision that you hold for what your life is doing in this short-term or longer-term vision, longer-term future, what you want to accomplish, how you want to get there. Notice that because I've been moving the dial here, the astrological dial, to put you on the ascendant, that we've shifted away from the date of the actual lunation. So it is indeed the 31st of May, not the 1st of June. But we're still well within the sign, at least sign-based opposition. So the lunation itself is at 9 degrees up there. Watch the introduction, you'll see all of it the way it should be. And so what we find here is this real conception of what it is that you're going towards in your future. And it has a lot to do with your everyday habits, your work, your everyday life, your structure of your everyday life, the schedule, like the overcoming stuff that you need to just get done, ticking off that list, and doing that in a way that it brings you much more of a sense of self. You find more joy, more interest in what you're doing. Getting organized is actually a really great way of thematically thinking about this, that it supports this vision. So by getting organized, we also have Saturn, your ruler, in the 3rd house, and then your modern ruler, Uranus, in the 5th house, being creative new solutions to different things that you're trying to accomplish. This can take you into that place that you want to be operating from, whether it be a social package, like how you want to fit in socially, or how you are seeing your personal future, the way that things show up. Maybe this is about an elder sibling. That's another possibility, that something's showing up around an elder sibling that you might need to tend to. This could be that you're having to care for somebody else. This might be about children, or it might be tending to somebody else's health for your family. Mars is in the 4th house, so that can also be where there's some challenge to fix something in the 4th house way, meaning it could be a physical thing around the home, or it could be something to do with your emotions, your psychological configuration at this time, or something to do with property, like land, property, housing, mm, something to do with the lineage as well. Maybe there's something that is going on in your early childhood family, the family of origin, and this is has just been squaring Pluto in your first house. So there's something personal that you're having to tend to here that requires a response, and that's in the days building up to the lunation, not at the moon, but it's kind of it's fixed by then. You're figuring it out. But because your ruler, traditional ruler, Saturn, is with Pallas in the third house, there's a lot here that you want to restructure around your everyday experience, your everyday life, which is the third house stuff, the organizational stuff, the everyday choices, the everyday goals that you're setting for yourself. It looks like you'll need to take them more seriously and recognize how that's creating a bigger picture for your life. And equally around who you spend time with, like maybe you're recognizing actually social media or hanging out at the cafe or whatever, too much socializing, whatever the thing is actually restricting me. It's actually costing me something. And this would be a great realization as you see that that's all fitting into a bigger picture of things. And you're operating from a place of needing to be in your own personal integrity to get to this future that you're seeing. That's the Antares part of that conjoining the lunation, which was at 9 degrees. And then because this modern ruler Uranus is so strongly in your fifth house now for trinal to you for 7 years to come, and then you've got Pluto at 5 degrees in your first house, there is going to be something that you need to express in really different ways. And here it's squaring the nodes at this time. So the North Node is, again, emphasizing this point of value. What are my values? What is my value? And what is my self-worth? How do I see myself? And that's the North Node now on Fomalhaut in the second house, which really is about also money and what you have at your disposal, but it's all about your value, your personal attributes and what you bring to the table. And it's ruled by Jupiter in your sixth house. So it is about your everyday life and work. Perhaps if it's not about a job, it's about your tasks, everyday tasks. Potentially pets as well. There's a bit of a debate as to whether pets should be sixth house or fifth house. Pets, small animals, sixth house, but a lot of times today people treat their pets like children, so then there's a thought that they should go in the fifth house, which means, anyway, Uranus is there too, so something about pets may be a safe bet. But the South Node is in the eighth house, so this can also be having overcome fears, having overcome dynamic of intimacy, having overcome something to do with money or received money in a way that now you have more creative, expansive potential. And now that shines a light on your future as well. I think that's where we're going to have to leave it for Aquarius. It's a nice moon because you've got this 11th house gives you a nice perspective. So do focus on the future and how you use yourself as a resource to get what you want to achieve without distractions, without accommodating other people's needs overly, so that you can get to where you want to go. All right, so Aquarius, I'll see you in the next video. And Pisces, you have this lunation in your 10th house. So there's something quite important here in terms of your social status or your personal growth and ambition, the path you want to lead going forward in terms of where you see yourself leaving a legacy or what it is that you want to bring now to the maybe social awareness or professional awareness or the career. Even if you're retired, there's a 10th house aspect to your life. It's about how you interact socially. There may be something that you feel more social about. You want to go out a little bit more. You want to get involved a little bit more. The sun is reflecting from the fourth house, and that's where there's a lot of busyness at this time. And so you'll find with the Uranus squaring the nodes, which is literal, squaring you and the other. So relational dynamics very, very strong right now, especially as your ruler Jupiter is with Venus in your fifth house of romantic relations or children and connecting with people through fun and enjoyment. There's a lot of social dynamism here, a lot of change, I have a Pisces stellium. My sun is in Pisces, and I am moving on the 31st at this Sagittarius full moon. I'm not suggesting that's a good idea. I'm just saying I am. Um, that is the day that it fell on. But it's going to be certainly something that will change my social structure because I'm moving from Spain as I do annually. I'm moving back to Brussels. So this might be, for some, the case as well, or your work is changing and therefore your attitude to how you're setting yourself up at home is also impacting. You're starting to sense, I need to step up in this way, or I need to go in this direction. This can also be, the 10th house is social status. So this can also be for those of you who are married, for example, that's your marriage. If you're not married, maybe there is something that has a prospect. Jupiter, Venus in your 5th, and ruling the 10th house, ruling your first house of self, where the North Node is, and it's on Fomalhaut. Maybe there is something very important for you happening in terms of an intimate or a romantic relationship. Venus rules your 8th house of intimacy, but also other people's money. So it can be something to do with money coming to you, working hard for money, money coming from client relations, money coming from an inheritance, money coming from business partnership. Saturn in the 2nd house has you working hard for whatever the money is. So you're taking your finances seriously. You are managing your money more cautiously or with more awareness, ideally, Pisces. And Mars, which is in the 3rd house, is ruling that 2nd house, which, by the way, second is also family. So it's stuff to do with your in general, family and family relations. So there's been some toing and froing around family, especially because Chiron has been there for 7 years already, where you may have needed to step in and help, or you may have needed the help of your family, either way. Saturn in the 2nd house usually suggests that you're the one supporting the family more so than the family supporting you. That doesn't have to mean financially. It can also mean like moral support or just being there, practical support. Saturn is like 3D. And then the 2nd house, which is referencing values, which is a part of the bigger picture as I illustrated in the introduction. So 2nd house is your self-worth. It's your values, the value of things, the value of your possessions, your stuff, getting clear around all of that, organizing that in such a way that you recognize how much influence that has on the rest of the bigger picture of your life. This would be a really good time to take all of that quite seriously and see that there may be stuff that you want to shed, for example. That's anyway a theme of Saturn in Aries in a general sense. But this would be a great time to really experiment with that, simplifying, clarifying, seeing how it all fits into the big picture, seeing how the way that you work with your morality or otherwise. Pisces is another one of those signs that can be a little bit like the mutable signs go both ways in so many ways. And so morality is always at times can be relative. So this would be an opportunity to really get serious about where your morality is impacting your life or impacting the lives of others. And how is that feeding back into you? I think that's kind of it. And so Jupiter, of course, with Venus, I will talk about in another video to come. It's very important for you as it is your ruler, and Pisces benefits possibly the most from this configuration because it's 5th house from Pisces. And that puts it in a very fortunate place as the ruler of Pisces. All right, I think we're going to leave it there, Pisces. Your modern ruler, Neptune, is in the 2nd. I'm not really talking about Neptune at the moment, but just keeping that in mind that there can be issues around your value, your finances, and so on that can have you at times a little confused, or that you might feel like you're not really understanding or managing things well. But come back to your sense of spiritualizing values rather than obfuscating values. That will help. And recognizing that your spiritual self is a value. That is one of Pisces' primary values. and that is part of the zeitgeist at the moment. So you're um, carry on, Pisces. That's all I can say. Carry on. All right, we'll leave it there, and I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.